few days ago, I stumbled on this video. In the video creator talks about his experience of Germany, differences in culture primarily between the UK and Germany, and gives pointers on what one should consider when thinking about moving to Germany. All in all, nice video. The visuals seemed handpicked, but that is always this way. It's like a fashion show. There you will only see models too. The creator himself seems genuinely nice. He seems generally well integrated and like a person who not only sees black or white, but right at the end of the video was a message which rubbed me the wrong way. That is to say, I really disliked it part. And I'm sure that wasn't the creator's intention, and what he did is not to disrespect Germany, his host country, himself, at least directly. But it was a call for others to disrespect it. Okay, that is a little bit polemic. He didn't really do that. He just said it is okay to disrespect it. And the weird thing was, the channel owner clearly didn't mean it this way. So what did he say exactly? Let me show the clip.
Number 5. You don't need to learn German. So, I have been harping on about the importance of learning German for what seems like forever. I mean, long before I started this channel, I was talking about how important it was to learn German, to integrate into society. And it's something that was like my number one goal. I had tunnel vision. Like my number one goal when I first moved here was to learn German. Now, the reason I say that you don't need to learn German anymore is that there has been a definite change in the culture, in the cultural makeup of Germany.
So he suggested that one does not need to learn German when immigrating to Germany. Keep in mind, we don't talk about tourism or living here for a few months. We talk about immigration for good. He also explains why he thinks it isn't necessary anymore. Text. He also said in the past he thought differently, but the culture in Germany changed. Firstly, the people around him are okay with speaking English. Second, there are already whole areas where the people cannot understand anymore. And finally, third, there was a political discussion about making English an official second language in Germany. None of these reasons are really enough for me. At first, I will explain why I think this is the case. Before I will say why I think telling potential new immigrants they don't need to learn the language of the country they might immigrate into is a huge call for disrespect. So what about his first argument? The people he knows seem to be okay with people who don't speak German but English. If I wanted to, I could keep my answer really short. Social bubble. He is an expat, living seemingly in a big city. Even if really everyone around him would be okay with that, it's not hard to see that there is a social bubble in place. I myself know people who would find this not okay. Heck, I will explain later why I don't find it okay. And again, I don't want to throw any shade at him. Just from the video alone, he seems like a genuine nice guy who doesn't intend anything bad. But that doesn't mean that he has his social bubbles like we all do. To his second point, there are already areas in Germany where you aren't understood when speaking German. And again, I could react with a really short counter question. And why is that good? And I don't mean it in a far-right way. But there are still people in Germany who don't speak English. I know some of them. Probably far more who speak a little bit but are not fluent in it. Is it okay to create areas where these people as foreigners in their own homeland? Not only foreigners, but ones no one can talk to? Is it worth aspiring to enlarge these areas? And please don't say everyone should learn English and younger generations blah blah. Even if you think so. Shall everyone learn Arabic, Russian, Chinese, etc. too? Or are these areas to be eradicated and English one should grow? If so, why? The vast majority of immigrants come from east of Germany. A more personal experience. In my area, there is a so-called mixed market. A small supermarket chain with primarily East European products. There everyone speaks Russian. I mean, they understand you when you speak German, but they tell you the amount of money you need to pay in Russian because they assume you speak Russian, because everybody there does. I don't. I admit I go very rarely to this place only for that reason. Some might now question how these people feel when they don't speak German. They have far more places they might feel uncomfortable than me. Isn't it okay if then there are a few places where they can feel at home? To that I say no. And think this is a far-right opinion, please just hear me out. In school, when I learned English, my teacher often talked about America, the melting pot of cultures and the progress this melting pot created. Looking back, I like the metaphor far more. Because you need to melt the different parts together. You can't just create, again, little or bigger bubbles, and then we have integration. Then there is no integration. There is, for decades, within it, talk in Germany about the generic he, how it makes girls and women feel excluded, how much might language has and how we need to adjust it. And now we want to integrate immigrants without them speaking the same language as everyone else. And yes, everyone else in this case is German, or Polish if you are in Poland, French if you are in France. You get what I mean? If you want to integrate into a culture, you need to speak their language as well. Then his last point. It is true that a political party wanted and probably still wants to make English a second official language in Germany. The political party is the FDP. It's a party which advocates primarily for the interests of the industry, and they also say this is the reason, because then it would be easier to get qualified immigrants. But just because a political party advocates for something, it doesn't mean the majority of the population is okay with that. For example, the Green Party in Germany said that consuming meat is no private affair. They want the meat consumed to be reduced by 75%, and to reach that goal advocate for a few things like subsidizing vegan food. I'm sure there are people that think like that, but they are not the majority. Back to the FDP. They got 11.4% in the last election. Current estimates are that they would get 4.9%. If you look at comments on the internet, you don't really find a majority for their opinion regarding a second official language either. So just because there is one small party advocating to make English an official second language, it seems to be nothing that will happen anytime soon. So that's why I don't think his arguments really are reason enough to not learn the language of your home country if you plan to live there for years to come. Now, why do I think it is necessary? I already touched upon the integration aspect before, so I will not go over it again, even though I think it is a really major point. What I will focus on instead is the respect or lack thereof. Refusing to learn the language of the country you choose to immigrate into is not just a sign but an act of disrespect. To immigrate into a country, but expecting the people there to learn a language so they can communicate with you, because you are too lazy yourself? How can you defend this? And yes, you not only choose with who you communicate. A whole reason why it is not easy to make English a second official language is because every IT solution and every document must be available the new language too. The government employees must be fluent in that language also. But not just them. Already now, I often see train employees who have a hard time communicating with fare dodgers because they don't speak German or don't want to. And speaking of trains, it's a psychological phenomenon that you tend to speak louder if you think no bystander is there to listen in. And yes, that also counts for languages. At least in my experience, a disproportional percent of people who speak obnoxiously loud on the telephone in public spaces speak a language I don't understand. So if you are in public or need to make an official arrangement, you should do your best to speak the language of the country you live in. Sure, tourism is something else entirely. Also, I understand that perhaps people come to a country and simply need time to learn the local language. That is all well and good. But it is important that they take this time and don't expect the locals to accommodate to them, even if some part of the local population would be okay with that.